been down this road before. You meet someone who seems perfect. The chemistry is electric. The conversation flows effortlessly. He says all the right things, looks at you with those intense eyes, and makes you feel seen in ways you haven't felt in years. You start to believe that maybe, just maybe, this is it. This is the connection you've been waiting for. But then something shifts. The texts become shorter. The plans become vaguer. The man who couldn't wait to see you suddenly has 1,000 reasons why he's too busy, and you're left standing in the wreckage of another almost relationship, wondering what went wrong, wondering if it was something you did, wondering if you're somehow broken or unlovable. Here's what I need you to understand right now, before we go any further. You are not broken. You are not too much or not enough. What you've experienced is the devastating reality of emotionally unavailable men, and it's time to learn how to protect your beautiful, valuable heart from ever going through this again. Welcome back to The Heart Code, where we dive deep into the psychology of relationships, helping mature women navigate the complex world of modern dating with wisdom, clarity, and self-respect. I'm so glad you're here today, because what we're about to discuss could literally change the trajectory of your romantic life. Before we begin, if you find value in this video, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more women like you discover this content. Drop a comment below sharing your experiences or questions about emotionally unavailable men. Your story matters, and this community learns from each other. Share this video with a friend who might need to hear this message. Subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you never miss content that could protect your heart. And if you really want to support the work we do here, empowering women with psychological insights and relationship wisdom, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support allows us to keep creating content that makes a real difference in women's lives. Now, let's talk about something that affects millions of mature women, but rarely gets discussed with the depth and nuance it deserves. Emotional unavailability in men isn't just about someone being busy or having commitment issues. It's a complex psychological pattern that can leave you feeling confused, unworthy, and questioning your own judgment. And the truth is, as a mature woman, you deserve so much better than the crumbs of affection from someone who isn't capable of giving you what you need. Today, we're going to explore exactly what emotional unavailability looks like, why it happens, how to spot it early, and most importantly, how to protect your heart from men who simply aren't ready or willing to show up for you emotionally. This isn't about blame or bitterness. This is about empowerment. This is about you reclaiming your power and choosing relationships that actually nourish your soul instead of depleting it. Understanding emotional unavailability. Let's start with the foundation. What exactly is emotional unavailability? It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but understanding its true meaning is crucial for your protection. Emotional unavailability is a pattern of behavior where someone is unable or unwilling to connect with you on a deep emotional level. It's not about occasional distance or needing personal space. It's a consistent inability to be present, vulnerable, and genuinely invested in building emotional intimacy. An emotionally unavailable man might be physically present, but emotionally he's locked away behind walls you can't penetrate no matter how hard you try. Here's what makes this particularly challenging for mature women. You've lived enough life to know what real connection feels like. You've experienced love, loss, growth, and transformation. You know your worth. Yet somehow, emotionally unavailable men can still slip past your defenses because they're often incredibly skilled at mimicking connection without actually providing it. Think of emotional unavailability as a house with all the lights on, but nobody home. From the outside, everything looks inviting. The appearance is there, but when you try to enter to really connect, you find emptiness. You find locked doors and hollow rooms. You find a man who can talk but not truly communicate, who can be present but not truly there, who can say the words but not feel the feelings. The psychology behind emotional unavailability is complex. For many men, it stems from early attachment wounds. Perhaps they grew up in environments where emotions were dismissed or punished. Maybe they experienced abandonment or betrayal that taught them never to fully let anyone in. Some men learned that vulnerability equals weakness, and they've spent their entire lives building armor to protect themselves from feeling too much. Others have never done the inner work necessary to heal from past relationships. They're carrying unprocessed pain, unresolved trauma, and unhealed wounds from previous connections. They might be divorced and still emotionally married to their ex-wife. They might be widowed and unable to open their heart to someone new because it feels like a betrayal. They might have been hurt so badly that the thought of true intimacy terrifies them on a level they don't even consciously recognize. Some emotionally unavailable men are narcissists or have narcissistic traits. They're capable of intense connection during the love bombing phase, but that connection is shallow and self-serving. They're not actually connecting with you as a person. They're connecting with what you can do for them, how you make them feel, what you represent in their life. The moment you need something back, the moment you show your own vulnerability or needs, they disappear emotionally. And here's something crucial that mature women need to understand. Emotional unavailability isn't always intentional. Many emotionally unavailable men genuinely believe they're available. They want to be in a relationship. They want to connect. They mean it when they say they care about you. But wanting something and being capable of it are two very different things. A man can sincerely desire closeness while simultaneously being terrified of it. He can genuinely like you while being fundamentally unable to show up for you in the ways you need. This is why emotional unavailability is so confusing. You're not dealing with a man who's openly rejecting you. You're dealing with a man who's giving you just enough to keep you hoping while never giving you enough to actually build something real. He's hot and cold, present and absent, interested and distant. And you're left trying to decode mixed signals and wondering if you're imagining things or if your concerns are valid. Let me be absolutely clear about something. Your concerns are valid. If you're feeling confused, uncertain, or like you're constantly trying to figure out where you stand with someone, that's not intimacy. That's anxiety. Real connection doesn't leave you constantly questioning. Real connection doesn't make you feel like you're always one step away from losing something you never really had in the first place. As a mature woman, you've earned the right to expect consistency. You've earned the right to expect emotional presence. You've earned the right to be with someone who doesn't make you feel crazy for wanting basic relationship fundamentals like honest communication, genuine interest, and reliable follow-through. Emotional unavailability isn't something you can fix, heal, or love away. It's something you need to recognize and protect yourself from. The early warning signs. Now let's talk about the early warning signs of emotional unavailability. This is where you can save yourself months or even years of heartache. Learning to spot these red flags early is your first line of defense. The first major warning sign is inconsistency in communication. An emotionally unavailable man will be incredibly attentive one day and then disappear for days without explanation. He might text you constantly for a week, making you feel like you're the center of his universe, and then go radio silent. When he resurfaces, he might offer a vague excuse or act like no time has passed at all. This push-pull dynamic is classic emotional unavailability. He wants connection enough to reach out when he's in the mood, but he's not capable of sustained, consistent communication that builds real intimacy. Pay attention to how he talks about past relationships. Does he blame all his exes for everything that went wrong? Does he describe every woman he's dated as crazy, clingy, or needy? Does he take zero responsibility for relationship failures? This isn't just about him being a jerk. It's a window into his emotional capacity. A man who can't reflect on his role in past relationship dynamics is a man who hasn't done the inner work necessary to be different in a new relationship. He's going to repeat the same patterns with you. Watch for future faking. This is when he talks about the future with you, but never takes concrete steps to build that future. He might mention taking a trip together someday, but never actually make plans. He might talk about introducing you to his kids or friends, but months pass and it never happens. He paints beautiful pictures of what could be, while keeping you perpetually in the waiting room of his life. Future faking feels good in the moment because it creates hope, but it's ultimately empty. Words without action are just manipulation, whether conscious or unconscious. Notice how he responds to your emotions. When you share something vulnerable, does he deflect, change the subject, make a joke, minimize your feelings, get uncomfortable or distant? An emotionally unavailable man cannot hold space for your emotions because he can't hold space for his own. Your vulnerability triggers his defense mechanisms. Instead of moving closer when you open up, he moves away. This is devastating because vulnerability is the currency of intimacy. If he can't meet you in your vulnerability, he can't build real closeness with you. Look at his availability for actual dates and quality time. Is he always too busy? Does he only suggest last-minute plans? Does he cancel frequently? Are your interactions mostly text-based with little face-to-face connection? Emotionally unavailable men often keep you at arm's length through strategic unavailability. They give you just enough contact to maintain the connection, but not enough to actually build something substantial. If a man is truly interested in you, he makes time for you. Period. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't keep you waiting for weeks between dates. He prioritizes seeing you. Pay attention to how much he shares about himself. Does he keep conversations surface level? Do you know more about his favorite sports team than his actual feelings or fears? Does he deflect personal questions? Does he share facts about his life, but never his inner world? Emotional unavailability often manifests as informational sharing without emotional sharing. He'll tell you what he did today, but not how he felt about it. He'll share opinions, but not vulnerabilities. After months of dating, you might realize you don't really know him at all. Watch for the pattern of intimacy, followed by withdrawal. This is one of the most painful patterns of emotional unavailability. You have an amazing date. Real connection happens. You share something deep. You feel closer than ever. And then he disappears. He pulls back. He creates distance. This isn't coincidence. This is his defense mechanism kicking in. The closeness triggered his fear of vulnerability, so he retreats to reestablish his emotional safety. If you notice that every time you get closer, he pulls away, you're dealing with a man who is terrified of real intimacy. Notice if he keeps the relationship undefined. Months pass and you have no idea where you stand. He won't have the relationship talk. He won't put a label on things. He won't define what you are to each other. This ambiguity is strategic, even if unconscious. Keeping things undefined means he doesn't have to be accountable. He doesn't have to show up consistently. He doesn't have to consider your needs or feelings in his decisions. He gets all the benefits of your companionship without any of the responsibility of actually being in a relationship with you. Watch how he handles conflict or disagreement. Does he shut down, get defensive, disappear, refuse to discuss issues? An emotionally unavailable man cannot handle the discomfort of conflict because conflict requires emotional presence and vulnerability. He'd rather avoid, deny, or run then actually work through something with you. This means your relationship can never deepen, because deepening requires the ability to navigate difficulties together. Pay attention to whether he's actually interested in you as a person. Does he ask about your life, your dreams, your fears, your past? Or does he mostly talk about himself or keep things surface level? Does he remember things you tell him? Does he follow up on things that matter to you? Emotional unavailability often includes a fundamental lack of curiosity about you. He's not trying to know you deeply because he's not capable of deep knowing. You might feel more like an accessory in his life than a partner. Look for compartmentalization. Does he keep you separate from the rest of his life? Have you never met his friends or family? Does he avoid public displays of being together? Does he keep you away from his social circles or other important areas of his life? Emotionally unavailable men often compartmentalize relationships to maintain control and avoid real integration. If you're not integrated into his life, you're not really in his life. Notice whether he's still hung up on an ex. Does he talk about her constantly? Compare you to her? Still seem emotionally entangled with her? Have unresolved feelings? An emotionally unavailable man is often unavailable because his emotional energy is still invested elsewhere. He might be divorced on paper but still married in his heart. This doesn't mean he doesn't like you. It means he doesn't have room for you. Watch for addiction to independence. Does he pride himself on not needing anyone? Does he view interdependence as weakness? Does he resist anything that feels like emotional reliance? Some men have built their entire identity around being self-sufficient and emotionally independent. They view needing someone or allowing someone to need them as a character flaw. This kind of man will never allow true partnership because partnership requires mutual dependence, and he's terrified of that. Pay attention to love bombing followed by distance. If he comes on incredibly strong at the beginning, overwhelming you with attention, affection, and intensity, but then suddenly pulls back once he's got you interested, this is a red flag. Love bombing creates artificial intimacy quickly. It bypasses the natural progression of getting to know someone. And once you're hooked, the emotionally unavailable man often pulls back because the intensity he created was never sustainable. It was a performance, not a genuine expression of his actual capacity for connection. The painful patterns you need to recognize. Let's talk about the painful patterns that emerge when you're involved with an emotionally unavailable man. Recognizing these patterns is crucial because they can be so gradual and subtle that you don't realize how much they're damaging you until you're already deeply invested. The first pattern is the constant state of uncertainty. You never quite know where you stand with him. One day he's all in, the next he's distant. You're perpetually waiting for the other shoe to drop. This uncertainty is crazy-making. It keeps you in a constant state of anxiety. You can't relax into the relationship because you never feel secure. And here's the psychological toll. Chronic uncertainty activates your stress response system. You're essentially living in a state of relationship hypervigilance, always scanning for signs of whether he's moving closer or pulling away. This isn't intimacy. This is trauma. The second pattern is one-sided emotional labor. You're doing all the work to maintain the connection. You're the one initiating conversations. You're the one making plans. You're the one trying to bridge the gap when he's distant. You're the one compromising, understanding, and accommodating. He's just showing up occasionally and receiving your efforts without reciprocating. This imbalance is exhausting. Relationships should be mutual. Love should be reciprocal. If you're the only one rowing the boat, you're not in a partnership. You're in a one-woman show. The third pattern is the feeling of walking on eggshells. You become hyper-aware of his moods. You start censoring yourself to avoid triggering his withdrawal. You stop sharing your needs because you've learned it pushes him away. You minimize your feelings to make things easier for him. You're essentially making yourself smaller and smaller to fit into the tiny emotional space he's offering. This is devastating for your sense of self. You start losing touch with your own needs and feelings because you're so focused on managing his. The fourth pattern is the cycle of hope and disappointment. He gives you just enough to keep you hoping. A sweet text, a wonderful date, a moment of real connection, and you think, this is it, he's finally opening up. But then he disappears again. The disappointment crushes you, but then he reappears with just enough effort to reignite your hope. This cycle is psychologically similar to intermittent reinforcement, which is actually the most powerful form of behavioral conditioning. It's why slot machines are so addictive. The unpredictable rewards keep you pulling the lever, hoping this time will be different. The fifth pattern is feeling invisible. He sees you when it's convenient for him, but not when you actually need him. Your birthday might pass without acknowledgement. Something important happens in your life, and he's nowhere to be found. You're sick or struggling, and he's absent. But when he's lonely or wants something, suddenly you're the center of his attention. This selective visibility is incredibly painful. It reinforces the message that your needs don't matter, that you only have value when you're serving his needs. The sixth pattern is the absence of progression. The relationship never deepens. It stays perpetually superficial or stuck in the same place. 6 months in, you're having the same shallow conversations you had on the first date. You're no closer to integration into his life. Nothing has evolved. This stagnation happens because emotional unavailability creates a ceiling on intimacy. The relationship can only go so far before hitting his emotional limitations, and it will stay there indefinitely unless he does serious work to change. The seventh pattern is your friends and family expressing concern. The people who love you are noticing that you're not yourself. They see how much energy you're spending on someone who isn't giving you much back. They're worried about how much you're compromising or settling. They're seeing things you can't see because you're in it. Listen to them. When multiple people who care about you are raising red flags, pay attention. Love shouldn't isolate you from your support system or change you in ways that concern the people who know you best. The eighth pattern is the loss of self-esteem. The longer you're involved with an emotionally unavailable man, the worse you feel about yourself. You start questioning your worth. You wonder if you're too needy, too emotional, too much. You begin to believe that maybe you don't deserve better. This erosion of self-esteem is one of the most damaging effects of emotional unavailability. A healthy relationship should enhance your sense of self, not diminish it. If being with someone makes you feel worse about yourself, that's a relationship you need to leave. The ninth pattern is the fantasy relationship. You're more in love with the potential of who he could be than the reality of who he is. You're investing in the glimpses of what you see when he's at his best, and ignoring the consistent pattern of what he actually delivers. You're in a relationship with a fantasy, not a person. This is dangerous because the fantasy will never disappoint you the way the reality does, so you keep staying, keep hoping, keep believing that if you just wait long enough or love him hard enough, the fantasy will become reality. It won't. The 10th pattern is the isolation that happens. You stop talking about the relationship honestly with others because you're embarrassed by how one-sided it is. You make excuses for him to your friends. You hide the painful parts because you don't want to hear what you already know. You stop being fully honest even with yourself about how bad it really is. This isolation keeps you stuck. You need reality checks. You need perspective. You need people to help you see clearly. The different types of emotionally unavailable men. Understanding that emotional unavailability comes in different forms can help you recognize it more quickly. Let's explore the various types of emotionally unavailable men you might encounter. First, there's the workaholic. This man uses his career, his ambitions, and his busy schedule as a shield against intimacy. He's always working late, always on a business trip, always focused on the next deal or project. Work is his socially acceptable excuse for unavailability. And here's the tricky part. Ambition is attractive. Success is attractive. So you might initially admire his work ethic without realizing it's actually his emotional escape hatch. The workaholic will make you feel selfish for wanting his time and attention. He'll frame his unavailability as him being responsible and driven, and your needs as you being unsupportive of his goals. But here's the truth. A man who wants to be with you makes time for you. Period. Work-life balance is a choice. If he's choosing work over you consistently, he's choosing work over you. Believe him. Second, there's the divorcee who isn't actually divorced. Legally, his marriage might be over, but emotionally, he's still completely entangled. He talks about his ex constantly. He's still processing the relationship. He's still angry, hurt, or bitter. His ex still has tremendous power over his emotional state. When you're involved with this type of man, you're essentially in a triangle. You, him, and the ghost of his marriage. He's not available because his emotional energy is still bound up in what ended. He might think he's ready to move on. He might genuinely want to move on, but wanting and being able are different things. This man needs time, probably therapy, and significant healing work before he can truly show up for someone new. Third, there's the player or serial dater. This man loves the chase, the conquest, the excitement of something new. But once he's got you interested, once the uncertainty is gone, so is he. He's addicted to the dopamine rush of new connection, not the steady burn of real intimacy. He'll always have one foot out the door, always be looking for the next option. He might be on dating apps while dating you. He might be seeing multiple women and keeping his options open. He's not looking for a relationship. He's looking for validation, ego boosts, and the thrill of pursuit. The moment you want something real, he's gone. Fourth, there's the commitment phobe. This is the classic emotionally unavailable man. He wants to be in a relationship in theory, but panics at any movement toward actual commitment. He's terrified of losing his freedom. He's scared of making the wrong choice. He's overwhelmed by the idea of exclusivity or long-term partnership. This man will keep you in relationship limbo indefinitely. He'll give you just enough to keep you around, but will resist every attempt to define or deepen the relationship. He might even acknowledge his commitment issues, but do nothing to address them. Awareness without action changes nothing. Fifth, there's the emotionally stunted man. This man simply never developed emotional intelligence or awareness. He was raised in an environment where feelings weren't discussed. He learned to suppress and ignore his inner world. He's not avoiding intimacy on purpose. He literally doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't understand emotions, his own or anyone else's. He's confused when you're upset. He doesn't know how to comfort or connect. He's not being cold intentionally. He's operating with a profound deficit in emotional skills. This man can potentially change with significant therapy and work, but you cannot be his emotional teacher. That's not your job. Sixth, there's the narcissist. This is the most dangerous type of emotionally unavailable man. He's not just unavailable. He's incapable of genuine empathy or real love. He can mimic connection brilliantly during the love bombing phase. He'll be everything you've ever wanted, but once you're hooked, you'll see his true nature. He'll be controlling, manipulative, gaslighting. He'll make everything about him. Your role is to serve his ego and needs. If you stop doing that, he'll discard you or punish you. This man doesn't just hurt you emotionally. He can damage your sense of reality and self-worth in profound ways. If you recognize narcissistic patterns, You don't try to fix or understand. You run. Seventh, there's the man who's still in love with someone else. Maybe it's an ex. Maybe it's someone he never actually dated but has been pining for. Maybe it's his late wife. His heart is occupied. There's no room for you. Not really. You'll always be competing with someone you can't compete with. He might care about you. He might enjoy your company. But you'll never be first in his heart because someone else is living there rent-free. This isn't about you not being good enough. It's about him not being available for a real relationship with you. Eighth, there's the avoidant attachment man. This is rooted in attachment theory. Men with avoidant attachment learned early in life that getting close to people is dangerous. They value independence above all else. They withdraw when people get close. They feel suffocated by intimacy. They need a lot of space. They're uncomfortable with emotional expression. This isn't about not liking you. It's a deep-seated pattern from childhood. These men can change, but it requires them to recognize the pattern and actively work to develop secure attachment. Without that work, you'll be in a constant cycle of closeness followed by distance. Ninth, there's the Peter Pan man. He's afraid of growing up and taking on adult responsibilities. He wants to keep his life free and unencumbered. He doesn't want the weight of a serious relationship. He's still living like he's in his 20s, even though he's much older. This man might be fun and spontaneous, but he's fundamentally refusing adulthood. A relationship with you would require him to step into a more mature version of himself, and he's not willing to do that. 10th, there's the man with unresolved trauma. He's been hurt badly in the past, maybe abused, abandoned, or betrayed. The trauma has created walls around his heart that he hasn't worked through. He wants connection, but he's terrified of it. Every time you get close, his trauma response gets triggered and he pushes you away. This man needs professional help to heal. Your love cannot fix his trauma. Only he can do that work, and until he does, he's not emotionally available, no matter how much he might want to be. Why mature women are particularly vulnerable. Now let's address something important. Why are mature women sometimes particularly vulnerable to emotionally unavailable men? Understanding this helps you protect yourself. First, there's the scarcity mindset. As a mature woman, you might feel like your options are limited. Maybe you're divorced and getting back into dating after years of marriage. Maybe you're widowed. Maybe you've been focused on your career and children and are just now making space for romance. The dating pool feels smaller. Good men seem hard to find. So when someone shows interest, even if he's not showing up consistently, you might feel like you should hold on to him because who knows when another opportunity will come. This scarcity mindset makes you tolerate less than you deserve. It makes you lower your standards and accept crumbs. Second, there's the biological clock for those who still want children or companionship. You might feel pressure because time feels limited. This urgency can make you overlook red flags or stay too long with someone who isn't right because you feel like you don't have time to start over. But here's the truth. Wasting time with the wrong person actually costs you more time than starting over would. Every day you spend with someone emotionally unavailable is a day you're not available for someone who could actually show up for you. Third, there's the tendency to be nurturing and understanding. As a mature woman, you've developed empathy and compassion. You understand that people are complex. You can see his potential. You understand his wounds. You make excuses for his behavior because you can see the reasons behind it. This is a beautiful quality, but emotionally unavailable men will take advantage of it, even unconsciously. Your understanding becomes permission for them to not change. Your compassion becomes the reason you stay when you should go. Fourth, there's the conditioning around being patient and not demanding. Women are socialized to be accommodating, to not ask for too much, to be the emotional caretakers in relationships. You might have internalized messages that good women don't make waves, don't have needs, support their men unconditionally. These messages make it hard for you to recognize when you're giving too much and getting too little. They make it hard to advocate for yourself or walk away when your needs aren't being met. Fifth, there's the experience of being the fixer. Maybe in your past relationships, you were the one who held things together. Maybe you pride yourself on being strong and capable. Maybe you've gotten positive feedback your whole life for being understanding and working through difficult situations. This history makes you see an emotionally unavailable man as a challenge to overcome rather than a situation to walk away from. You think if you just love him enough, understand him enough, be patient enough, he'll open up. But you cannot fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed or doesn't recognize they need fixing. Sixth, there's the lack of experience with modern dating if you've been out of the game for a while. Dating has changed dramatically. Online dating, ghosting, breadcrumbing, situationships. These are new dynamics that can be confusing. You might not immediately recognize patterns that younger women who've been navigating modern dating for years would spot instantly. You're learning a new language, and emotionally unavailable men exploit that learning curve. Seventh, there's your own relationship with your worth. If you struggle with feeling valuable, if you have unresolved wounds around being enough, emotionally unavailable men will trigger and exploit those wounds. They confirm your deepest fears about not being worthy of real love. And ironically, their unavailability can make you work harder to prove your worth, to earn their affection, to be good enough for them to choose you. This is backwards. The right person doesn't make you prove your worth. They see it and honor it from the start. Eighth, there's the fear of being alone. Maybe you've been alone for a long time and the loneliness is hard. Maybe you're scared that if you let this man go, you'll end up alone forever. This fear makes you settle for partial presence over complete absence. But here's what you need to understand. Being in a relationship with someone emotionally unavailable is a special kind of loneliness. It's the loneliness of being with someone but feeling completely alone. That's worse than actual solitude. At least in solitude, you're not investing your hope and energy into someone who can't reciprocate. Ninth, there's your own avoidance of deeper issues. Sometimes we stay with emotionally unavailable men because it allows us to avoid our own work. If he's the problem, you don't have to look at your patterns. If his unavailability is the issue, you don't have to face your own fears of intimacy. Sometimes we choose emotionally unavailable partners because on some level, they feel safe. They won't get too close. They won't see the parts of us we're ashamed of. They won't demand vulnerability we're not ready to give. If this resonates, it's important to be honest with yourself about it. 10th, there's the trauma bond that can develop. If you've been in a relationship with an emotionally unavailable man for a while, especially if there are narcissistic elements, you might have developed a trauma bond. This is a powerful psychological attachment that happens through cycles of intermittent reinforcement, hope, and disappointment. The relationship becomes addictive. You're biochemically bonded to someone who's hurting you. Breaking free feels impossible even though you know it's necessary. Understanding trauma bonding is crucial for getting free. The devastating impact on your well-being. We need to talk honestly about what being involved with an emotionally unavailable man does to you. The impact isn't just emotional disappointment, it's profound and multifaceted. Your mental health suffers. The constant uncertainty triggers anxiety. The repeated disappointments can lead to depression. The gaslighting that often accompanies emotional unavailability can make you question your perception of reality. You might start experiencing symptoms you've never had before. Intrusive thoughts, difficulty concentrating, sleep problems, loss of interest in things you used to enjoy. The relationship becomes a source of chronic stress that affects your overall mental well-being. Your self-esteem erodes. When someone you care about can't show up for you emotionally, you internalize that as being about you. You start believing you're not interesting enough, attractive enough, worthy enough. Every time he pulls away, it confirms your deepest insecurities. Over time, this erodes your sense of self until you barely recognize the confident woman you used to be. You become smaller, quieter, less sure of yourself. Your physical health can be impacted. Chronic relationship stress affects your body. You might experience headaches, digestive issues, changes in appetite, weakened immune function. The stress hormones flooding your system from constant uncertainty and disappointment take a physiological toll. You might notice you're getting sick more often, feeling more fatigued, having more physical complaints. The mind-body connection means that emotional pain manifests physically. Your other relationships suffer. When you're consumed by an emotionally unavailable man, you have less energy for friends and family. You might cancel plans because you're hoping he'll finally make time for you. You might withdraw from people who are expressing concern about the relationship because you don't want to hear it. You might be physically present with loved ones but emotionally absent because you're consumed with analyzing his latest text or lack thereof. The isolation that develops leaves you more vulnerable and less supported. Your productivity and focus at work decline. It's hard to concentrate when your mind is constantly trying to decode mixed signals or wondering when he'll text. You might be checking your phone constantly, distracted and anxious. Your work quality might suffer. You might miss opportunities because you're not fully present. The relationship consumes mental and emotional bandwidth you need for other areas of your life. Your sense of self becomes fuzzy. You start losing touch with your own needs, desires, and boundaries because you've become so focused on him. You're constantly trying to figure out what he wants, what he's thinking, what you should do to maintain his interest. In the process, you stop asking what you want, what you think, what's actually okay with you. You become a reactor rather than an actor in your own life. Your trust in yourself deteriorates. If you stay too long with someone emotionally unavailable, you start not trusting your own judgment. You question your ability to read people and situations. You second-guess your instincts. This erosion of self-trust is one of the most damaging effects because it impacts every area of your life. If you can't trust yourself, you feel lost and powerless. Your capacity for joy diminishes. The relationship becomes a source of pain more than pleasure, but you're still in it, still hoping, still trying. The chronic disappointment and stress override positive experiences. Even moments of happiness are tinged with anxiety about when it will disappear. You lose access to your natural capacity for lightness, play, and joy. Your standards lower. The longer you're with an emotionally unavailable man, the more you normalize behavior that would have been unacceptable to you at the beginning. You get used to being treated poorly. You adjust your expectations downward. What you used to see as red flags, you now explain away. This recalibration of standards is dangerous because it makes you vulnerable to increasingly worse treatment. Your hope for love becomes damaged. Being with someone emotionally unavailable can make you cynical about relationships. You might start believing that all men are like this, that real connection isn't possible, that you're foolish for wanting more. This damaged hope can close you off to future possibilities and prevent you from being open to someone who could actually love you well. How to protect your heart. Now let's get to the practical part. How do you actually protect your heart from emotionally unavailable men? Here are concrete strategies. First, develop early detection skills. Learn the red flags we discussed and take them seriously from the beginning. Don't explain them away. Don't give him the benefit of the doubt when he's showing you who he is. People reveal themselves if you're paying attention. Inconsistent communication, lack of follow-through, keeping you at a distance, these aren't things that get better. They're things that are showing you reality. Believe what you see, not what you hope for. Second, move slowly. Don't rush into deep investment. Let him earn your trust and your heart over time through consistent action. Don't sleep with him too quickly. Don't introduce him to important people in your life too soon. Don't start planning a future before you've seen how he shows up in the present. Moving slowly gives you time to observe patterns before you're too emotionally invested to see clearly. Third, maintain your own life fully. Don't reorganize your schedule around his availability. Don't drop friends or hobbies because you're hoping he'll finally have time for you. Keep your own life rich and full. This does two things. It protects you emotionally because you have other sources of fulfillment, and it gives you perspective. When you have a full life, you can more easily see when someone isn't adding value. When your life revolves around him, you lose that perspective. Fourth, listen to your gut. Your intuition is giving you information. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't talk yourself out of your instincts. Don't let him convince you that you're imagining things or being paranoid. Women's intuition is real and valuable. Trust that internal knowing even when you can't fully articulate why something doesn't feel right. Fifth, have non-negotiable standards. Decide in advance what you absolutely require in a relationship. Consistency in communication, reliability, emotional availability, integration into his life. Whatever matters to you, make it non-negotiable. And when someone doesn't meet those standards, walk away. Don't negotiate with yourself. Don't lower the bar. Standards aren't mean or demanding, they're self-respect. Sixth, stay connected to reality. Get outside perspective from trusted friends and family. Talk honestly about what's happening in the relationship. Don't hide the concerning parts. Let people who love you help you see clearly. Write in a journal about what's actually happening versus what you hope will happen. Track patterns. Look at facts, not feelings or potential. Seventh, don't try to fix or change him. You cannot love someone into emotional availability. You cannot be understanding enough to heal his wounds. You cannot be patient enough to wait out his issues. His emotional availability is his work to do, not yours. Your job is to discern whether he's actually doing that work or whether he's expecting you to accept his limitations indefinitely. Eighth, set and maintain boundaries. If he's not meeting your needs, communicate that clearly. If he doesn't change, follow through with consequences. Boundaries without enforcement are just suggestions. If you say you need consistent communication and he continues to go silent, stop being available when he resurfaces. If you say you need plans more than a day in advance and he keeps making last-minute requests, say no. Teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Ninth, be willing to walk away. This is the most important protection of all. You must be willing to leave. If you're staying no matter what, you have no power. He knows it and behaves accordingly. But when you know you're worth enough to leave someone who isn't honoring it, everything changes. Sometimes the only way to protect your heart is to remove it from harm's way. Walking away isn't failure, it's self-preservation. 10th, do your own inner work. Understand your patterns. If you keep choosing emotionally unavailable men, there's something in you that's drawn to that. Maybe it's familiar from childhood. Maybe it allows you to avoid your own intimacy fears. Maybe it confirms negative beliefs about yourself. Work with a therapist to understand and heal your patterns. You can't change your attraction to emotionally unavailable men through willpower alone. You need to heal whatever makes them appealing. 11th, practice self-compassion. If you've been hurt by emotionally unavailable men, be gentle with yourself. You're not stupid or weak, you're human. These men can be incredibly convincing. They trigger deep psychological patterns. Having compassion for yourself helps you heal and learn. rather than spiraling into shame that keeps you stuck. 12th, focus on actions, not words. Anyone can say nice things. Anyone can make promises. What matters is what someone actually does. Does he show up? Does he follow through? Does his behavior match his words? Judge him by his actions over time, not by what he says in moments of closeness or when he's trying to keep you around. The conversation you need to have. Sometimes you're already involved with someone and you need to have a direct conversation about emotional availability. Let's talk about how to do that. First, get clear with yourself about what you need. Before you talk to him, know what you actually need from a relationship. Not what you hope he might eventually give, but what you genuinely need to feel secure, valued, and happy. Write it down if you need to. Be specific. This clarity is essential because otherwise he can deflect or minimize or promise vague future changes. Second, choose the right time and place. Don't try to have this conversation over text. Don't do it when you're emotional and reactive. Don't do it after you've been intimate. Choose a calm moment when you can both talk without distractions. In person is best. Your tone should be calm, direct, and non-accusatory. Third, use I statements. Don't attack him or make him defensive. Say things like, "I've noticed that I often don't hear from you for days at a time, and I feel anxious and undervalued when that happens. I need more consistent communication." Not, "You're a terrible communicator and you make me feel bad." Taking responsibility for your feelings while clearly stating your observations and needs is powerful. Fourth, be specific about behaviors. Don't talk in generalities like, "You're emotionally unavailable." He'll just get defensive or confused. Talk about specific behaviors. "When we make plans and you cancel at the last minute, it makes me feel like I'm not a priority. I need plans to be respected unless there's a genuine emergency." Specificity gives him something concrete to respond to. Fifth, listen to his response without immediately accepting excuses. He might have reasons for his behavior: childhood wounds, past relationships, work stress. Listen to those reasons, but then ask the crucial question: what are you actively doing to address this? Reasons explain behavior. They don't excuse it. If he's aware of his patterns but not working to change them, his awareness is meaningless. Sixth, watch for defensiveness versus openness. If he immediately gets defensive, makes excuses, turns it back on you, or minimizes your concerns, that tells you everything. An emotionally available person who cares about you can hear your concerns without falling apart or attacking. They might feel uncomfortable, but they can stay present and engaged in the conversation. Defensiveness usually means he's not willing or able to look at his behavior honestly. Seventh, ask for specific changes and timelines. If he says he wants to work on things, great. What specifically will change? How? When? "I hear that you want to be better about communication. What does that look like specifically? Can you commit to checking in at least once a day, even if you're busy?" Getting specific commitments rather than vague promises is essential. And if he can't or won't get specific, that's your answer. Eighth, observe what happens after the conversation. Words mean nothing without changed behavior. After your conversation, does anything actually change? Or does he go back to the same patterns within days or weeks? People who are serious about change demonstrate that through action. Give it a few weeks to see if there's genuine follow-through. Ninth, be prepared to walk away. Before you have this conversation, decide what you'll do if nothing changes. If you're not actually willing to leave, the conversation has no teeth. He knows he can keep doing what he's doing because you'll stay anyway. But if you know your line in the sand and you're prepared to enforce it, you're having a very different conversation. You're not pleading, you're stating your needs and the consequences if they're not met. 10th, don't have the same conversation multiple times. If you've already talked about these issues and nothing has changed, don't keep repeating the conversation. That's not communication. That's you hoping that this time will be different, while he continues to demonstrate it won't be. After one clear conversation with no change, it's time to make decisions and take action, not to keep talking. Recognizing when it's time to leave. One of the hardest things about being involved with an emotionally unavailable man is recognizing when it's truly time to let go. Here are the signs that it's time. If your mental health is suffering significantly, it's time to go. If you're experiencing anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues that are directly related to the relationship, you need to prioritize your well-being. No relationship is worth sacrificing your mental health. Period. If you've clearly communicated your needs and nothing has changed, it's time to go. One clear conversation about what you need should be enough. If he cares about you and is capable of change, he'll make changes. If he doesn't or can't, staying and repeating the same conversation is disrespecting yourself. If you're constantly making excuses for him to yourself and others, it's time to go. If you find yourself justifying his behavior, explaining away red flags, or hiding the truth about how the relationship really is, you know on some level it's not okay. That internal knowing is important. Listen to it. If the relationship is affecting your other relationships negatively, it's time to go. If friends and family are expressing concern, if you're isolating yourself, if you're distracted from your children or other important relationships because you're consumed with him, these are signs that the cost is too high. If you feel worse about yourself than you did before you met him, it's time to go. The right relationship should enhance your sense of self, not diminish it. If you're less confident, less secure, less happy, that's not love, that's damage. If there's been no progression in months or years, it's time to go. If the relationship is stuck in the same place despite time passing, it's not going anywhere. Staying and hoping won't change that. Some relationships have a ceiling, and if you've hit it, accept that this is as good as it will get and decide if that's enough for you. Usually, it's not. If you're more invested in his potential than his reality, it's time to go. If you're in love with who he could be rather than who he actually is, you're not in a real relationship. You're in a fantasy, and fantasies can't sustain you. If the pain outweighs the joy consistently, it's time to go. All relationships have hard moments, but the overall trajectory should be more positive than negative. If you're unhappy more than happy, anxious more than secure, disappointed more than fulfilled, why are you staying? If your gut is screaming at you to leave, it's time to go. That internal knowing is giving you crucial information. Don't override it with your head, with hope, with fear of being alone. Trust yourself. If you know you deserve better, it's time to go. Deep down, you know your worth. You know you deserve someone who shows up consistently, who's excited to be with you, who makes you a priority. If you know that's not what you're getting, have the courage to honor what you know. The grieving process. When you do leave an emotionally unavailable man, there's a grieving process. Understanding this can help you navigate it. First, there's the grief of letting go of hope. You're not just losing him, you're losing the future you imagined, the dreams you had, the potential you saw. This grief is real, even though what you're grieving never actually existed. Let yourself mourn that. It matters. Second, there's often an intense period of missing him. Your brain is withdrawing from the intermittent reinforcement pattern you were caught in. It's similar to addiction withdrawal. You'll have intense urges to contact him. You'll remember all the good moments and forget the painful patterns. This is normal. It will pass. Don't act on it. Third, there might be anger. At him for wasting your time, at yourself for staying so long, at the unfairness of it all. Let yourself feel the anger without judgment. It's part of healing. Just don't stay in it indefinitely or use it to fuel destructive behavior. Fourth, there's often bargaining. Your mind will try to convince you that maybe you were too harsh, maybe he wasn't that bad, maybe you should give him another chance. This is your brain trying to avoid the pain of loss by going back to the familiar. Don't listen. Remember why you left. Fifth, there will be loneliness. Even though you were lonely in the relationship, there's a different loneliness that comes from definitively being alone. This phase is hard but temporary, and it's better than the loneliness of being with someone who can't truly see you. Sixth, there might be relief. Once the initial pain passes, many women feel profound relief. The anxiety is gone. The constant wondering and analyzing is over. The weight of trying to make something work that fundamentally couldn't has lifted. Let yourself enjoy that relief without guilt. Seventh, there's the phase of rediscovering yourself. You start remembering who you were before him. You reconnect with interests and friends you'd neglected. You start feeling like yourself again. This is when you realize how much of yourself you'd lost. Eighth, there might be fear about trying again. The experience might make you wary of opening your heart to anyone new. That's understandable. Take your time. Do your healing work. You will be ready to try again when you've learned the lessons and done the growth work. Healing and moving forward. Healing from the experience of being with an emotionally unavailable man requires intentional work. Here's how to move forward. First, break the no-contact rule seriously. This means no texting, calling, checking his social media, driving by his house, nothing. Every time you contact him or check on him, you're interrupting your healing process. You're reopening the wound. It's like trying to heal a cut while constantly picking at it. You need complete separation to heal. Second, get support. Talk to friends, family, a therapist. Process what happened. Don't isolate yourself. The healing happens in connection with others who can reflect reality back to you and remind you of your worth when you're struggling to remember it yourself. Third, feel your feelings fully. Don't numb out with alcohol, food, shopping, new relationships, or other distractions. Sit with the pain, cry when you need to, journal. Feel it moving through you. The only way out is through. Avoiding the feelings just prolongs the healing process. Fourth, resist the urge to immediately date someone new. You need time to heal, reflect, and learn from this experience before you're ready for something new. Jumping into a new relationship too quickly is a recipe for repeating the same patterns. Give yourself at least several months to process and grow. Fifth, examine your patterns. Why did you choose him? Why did you stay so long? What needs was he meeting even though he was hurting you? What beliefs about yourself or relationships kept you stuck? This reflection is crucial for not repeating the pattern. Sixth, work on your relationship with yourself. Often we seek validation from others because we don't give it to ourselves. Strengthen your self-worth. Learn to be comfortable alone. Develop the ability to meet your own emotional needs. When you're solid within yourself, emotionally unavailable men become much less appealing. Seventh, update your understanding of what you want and need. Your experience taught you something about what doesn't work for you. Get clear about what does. What are your non-negotiables? What does emotional availability actually look like? What kind of relationship do you truly want? Eighth, forgive yourself. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. You're not stupid or weak for staying too long or falling for the wrong person. You're human. Have compassion for yourself the way you would for a friend going through the same thing. Ninth, consider therapy if you're really struggling or if you notice patterns of choosing unavailable partners. A good therapist can help you understand and heal the underlying wounds that make you vulnerable to these dynamics. They can help you develop healthier attachment patterns and stronger boundaries. 10th, rebuild your life to be fulfilling, independent of romantic relationship. Invest in friendships, pursue passions, create a life you love. When your life is rich and full, you're not desperate for a relationship to complete you. You're choosing to share your already full life with someone who enhances it. What emotional availability actually looks like. After talking so much about unavailability, let's talk about what you should actually be looking for. What does emotional availability look like? An emotionally available man is consistent. His words match his actions. If he says he'll call, he calls. If he makes plans, he keeps them. You don't have to wonder where you stand because his behavior makes it clear. There's no hot and cold, no disappearing and reappearing, just steady, reliable presence. He communicates openly. He shares not just facts about his day, but how he feels. He can talk about his emotions without shutting down or deflecting. He asks about your inner world and actually listens to the answers. Communication flows easily because he's not hiding or withholding. He makes you a priority. You're not fitting into the tiny spaces of his life that happen to be available. He actively makes time for you. He adjusts his schedule to see you. He includes you in his plans. You feel like you matter because his actions demonstrate that you do. He moves the relationship forward. There's natural progression, meeting friends and family, defining the relationship, making future plans together. He's not keeping you in limbo. He's actively building something with you because that's what he wants. He handles conflict maturely. When issues come up, he doesn't run, shut down, or get defensive. He stays and works through things with you. He can hear your concerns without falling apart. He takes responsibility for his part. He's committed to finding solutions together. He's vulnerable with you. He shares his fears, his dreams, his insecurities. He lets you see him, really see him, not just the polished version he shows the world. His vulnerability invites yours, creating real intimacy. He's interested in you deeply. He wants to know your history, your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams. He remembers what you tell him. He asks follow-up questions. You feel genuinely seen and known because he's actually paying attention. He's integrated into your life and you into his. He meets your friends and family. You meet his. You know his co-workers, his routines, his world. There's no compartmentalization because he wants you to be part of his full life. He can handle your emotions. When you're upset, he doesn't make it about him or try to fix it immediately. He can sit with you in your feelings. He offers comfort and support. Your emotional expression doesn't scare him away. He's reliable and trustworthy. You can count on him. When he says he'll do something, he does it. He's there for you, not just when it's convenient, but when you actually need him. You feel secure because you know he's solid. He wants to know your needs and meet them. He doesn't view your needs as demands or burdens. He asks what you need and tries to provide it. He cares about your happiness and well-being. Making you happy brings him joy. He's doing his own emotional work. He goes to therapy or reads books or is actively working on his own growth and healing. He's not expecting you to fix him or be his therapist. He takes responsibility for his emotional health. He can articulate his feelings and needs. He's not leaving you to guess or decode. He tells you clearly what's going on with him and what he needs. This clarity makes the relationship so much easier. He's excited about you and doesn't hide it. He lights up when he sees you. He tells you he's thinking about you. His enthusiasm is obvious and consistent. You never have to wonder if he's interested because he shows it constantly. He respects your boundaries. When you say no or express a limit, he honors it without making you feel bad. He doesn't push, manipulate, or try to change your mind. Your boundaries make you feel safer with him, not like obstacles he's trying to overcome. Reclaiming your power. Let's talk about reclaiming your power. After experiences with emotionally unavailable men, your power lies in your standards. You get to decide what you will and won't accept in your life. You get to have requirements for who gets access to you, your time, your energy, and your heart. Standards aren't mean or demanding, they're self-respect. Reclaim your right to have high standards. Your power lies in your walk-away ability. The moment you know you can and will walk away from anything that doesn't serve you, everything changes. You're no longer desperate or clingy. You're discerning. You're selective. You're powerful. Practice walking away from things that aren't right, even when it's hard. Your power lies in trusting yourself. Your intuition is real and valuable. Your feelings are data. Your instincts are trying to protect you. Stop overriding your internal wisdom with hope, fear, or what you think you should feel. Trust yourself fiercely. Your power lies in your independence. Build a life so fulfilling that a relationship is the cherry on top, not the whole sundae. When you're not desperate for partnership to complete you, you make much better choices about who to partner with. Your power lies in your voice. Speak up for yourself. Express your needs. Don't minimize or silence yourself to make things easier for someone else. Your voice matters. Your needs matter. Use your voice unapologetically. Your power lies in your healing work. Every pattern you recognize and heal, every wound you address, every limiting belief you release, you become more powerful. Healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about becoming the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. Your power lies in your choices. Every single day, you're making choices. Who you spend time with, what you tolerate, what you walk away from, how you treat yourself. These choices shape your life. Choose powerfully. Your power lies in your community. Surround yourself with people who reflect your worth back to you, who call you out lovingly when you're settling, who celebrate your growth, who remind you who you are when you forget. These relationships make you stronger. Your power lies in your self-awareness. Know your triggers, your patterns, your vulnerabilities. When you're aware, you can make conscious choices instead of being driven by unconscious patterns. Awareness creates space for different choices. Your power lies in your vision for your life. Get clear about what you actually want, not what you think you should want or what someone else wants for you. When you're clear about your vision, it's easier to recognize what aligns and what doesn't. Your power lies in your boundaries. Every time you enforce a boundary, even when it's uncomfortable, you're building your power. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. They protect your energy. They honor your needs. Set them, enforce them unapologetically. Your power lies in your self-love. The more you genuinely love and value yourself, the less willing you are to accept less than you deserve. Self-love isn't selfish. It's the foundation of healthy relationships. Love yourself first, fiercely and completely. The message you need to hear. As we come toward the end of this deep dive, there are some things I need you to really hear, not just understand intellectually, but feel in your heart. You are not too much. If someone can't handle your emotions, your needs, your depth, they're not your person. The right person won't make you feel like you're too much. They'll be grateful for everything you are. You are not asking for too much. Consistency, honesty, emotional availability, these are basics. They're not unreasonable expectations. They're fundamental requirements for a healthy relationship. Don't let anyone make you feel demanding for wanting these things. It's not your job to fix him. You are not a rehabilitation center for emotionally damaged men. You are not responsible for his healing. You can love someone and still acknowledge they're not in a place to be a good partner. His journey is his to walk. The right love won't hurt like this. Yes, all relationships have challenges, but the overall experience shouldn't be painful, anxious, and confusing. That's not love, that's trauma. Real love feels secure, consistent, and peaceful, even when navigating difficulties. You deserve to be chosen clearly and consistently. You deserve someone who knows they want to be with you and shows it through their actions. You deserve certainty, not ambiguity. You deserve to feel secure in someone's affection and commitment. Being alone is better than being with the wrong person. Loneliness is temporary. The damage from a destructive relationship can last years. Don't settle for poor treatment because you're scared of being alone. Being alone gives you the space to heal and grow and become ready for someone who's actually right for you. You have time. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know there's pressure and urgency, but rushing into the wrong thing costs you more time than waiting for the right thing. You have time to heal, to grow, to find what's real. Your worth isn't determined by whether someone chooses you. If a man can't see your value, that's information about him, not you. Your worth is inherent. It doesn't increase or decrease based on someone else's capacity to recognize it. You've been strong enough to survive everything that's brought you here. You're strong enough to walk away from what's not serving you. You're strong enough to start over. You're strong enough to wait for what's real. Trust your strength. The lessons are gifts, even though they hurt. Every experience with an emotionally unavailable man teaches you something about yourself, about relationships, about what you will and won't accept. These lessons, as painful as they are making you wiser, stronger, clearer. Don't waste them by staying stuck in bitterness. Learn, grow, evolve. We've covered so much ground today. We've explored what emotional unavailability really is, the early warning signs, the painful patterns, the different types of unavailable men, why mature women are particularly vulnerable, the devastating impact on your well-being, how to protect your heart when it's time to leave, the healing process, what emotional availability looks like, and how to reclaim your power. The bottom line is this: you deserve a love that is consistent, present, and emotionally available. You deserve someone who makes you feel secure, valued, and prioritized. You deserve a partner who does their own emotional work and shows up for you fully. You deserve clarity, not confusion. You deserve actions that match words. You deserve to feel chosen, not optional. Emotionally unavailable men cannot give you these things, no matter how much you want them to, no matter how much potential you see, no matter how long you wait or how perfectly you love them. Their unavailability is about them, not you, and trying to change it will only cost you precious time, energy, and pieces of yourself. Your job is to recognize unavailability early, protect your heart fiercely, and walk away from situations that aren't serving you. Your job is to do your own healing work so you stop being attracted to unavailability. Your job is to build a life so fulfilling that a relationship is an addition, not a necessity. Your job is to love yourself enough to refuse crumbs when you deserve the whole feast. This isn't easy work. It requires courage to walk away. It requires strength to stay alone while healing. It requires wisdom to recognize patterns and choose differently. But you have all of those things. You've survived everything life has thrown at you so far. You have the resilience, the intelligence, and the heart to navigate this too. Remember, every day you stay with someone who can't truly see you is a day you're not available for someone who can. Every moment you invest in trying to earn someone's emotional availability is a moment you're not investing in your own well-being. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you're teaching yourself that you're not worthy of more. But you are worthy. You always have been. And it's time to live like you believe that. If this video resonated with you, please share it with another woman who needs to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your experiences or insights. Your story could be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find the courage to choose themselves. Hit that like button so this message reaches more women who need it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content that could change your life. And if you really want to support this work and help us continue creating content that empowers mature women, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support makes all of this possible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this hard work of growth and healing. Thank you for valuing yourself enough to learn how to protect your beautiful heart. You are not alone in this journey. There's an entire community of women learning these lessons, healing these wounds, and choosing better for themselves. Remember, you are worthy of a love that feels like home. You are worthy of a partner who shows up. You are worthy of a relationship that nourishes your soul instead of depleting it. Don't settle for anything less. Until next time, protect your heart, trust your wisdom, and choose yourself boldly and unapologetically. You deserve nothing less than extraordinary love, and that starts with how you love yourself.